So do you want to install a sub into your factory head unit in your Jeep, but you just don't know how to, you think it's too complicated? We're here to show you a couple of options and to show you how easy that is to do. Hey everybody, Mike here with Trail 7, and today we're going to bring you the answer of how to install a subwoofer to your factory head unit in your Jeep JL and your Jeep Gladiator. We're going to show you a couple of different options, we're going to show you what you need, and best of all, we're going to show you how easy this is to do. This is applicable for Jeep JL Wranglers, years 18 to 23, and also Jeep Gladiators, year 2020 to 2023. This will not work for the 2024s. The 2024 head unit, the interface is completely different, so this will not work. All right, so we have a couple of different options here on the table. I want to let you know that this is a universal install, right? This is just going to show you how to install the sub using the factory head unit into your Jeep, using either a kicker amp, using an Alpine amp, using an MB Core amp. The process is all going to be the same. We have a couple of different options here as far as mounting brackets for your amplifier. The way that this is going to set up is the amplifier is going to mount underneath your driver's seat. You can either have the flat amp bracket option, the tilted bracket amp option, and we're going to show you why you would do that once we get into the vehicle. We're going to have a couple of different power options that you can choose from. We also have a couple of different installation methods depending on if your Jeep is factory amplified or if it is non-factory amplified. I get the question a lot also is how do I tell if my Jeep is factory amplified? If you have a Gladiator, you have a sub that's behind the rear bench. If you have a Wrangler, then you have a Alpine sub on the right side of the cargo area. Both applications, whether you have factory amplified Jeep or non-factory amplified, they require a different module. The installation process is identical. The difference is you're going to have this module or you're going to have this module, and we're going to show them both to you in the Jeep. Something else I want to point out here is the power harnesses. If you'll see that I have two options here. What we're going to do today is we're going to install this 4-gauge harness, which is going to work out if you want to install the mono amp and later on install a 4-channel amp or something like that. So we've prepped this bracket for that. There's plenty of room on this bracket for another amp because Kicker also does have a 4-channel amp that will fit here perfectly. So if you just went ahead and prepped that for it. What I've done here also is I've mounted the fuse on the bottom here, and I'll show you why in the Jeep, and I'll give you an explanation as to what we're doing with that. All right, now let's talk a little bit about what we have in front of me here. So we have the two different amp brackets. We have one that's slanted, we have one that's flat. Depending on the application that you choose that's best for your Jeep, will determine which way to go with that. We have two different modules set up here. We have two different harnesses. This is the pack module that's going to be applicable for the non-factory amplified Jeeps. This is a 2-channel, so you're only going to be able to hook up the sub amp for this application. This module here with this harness, this is a 6-channel. This is for the factory amplified Jeeps. You have to run this module if it's factory amplified and this module if it's non-factory amplified. The one won't work for the other one. In the future, if you want to upgrade to another 4-channel amp, you can also add this to this pack module. Let's go over the different power harnesses that we have. You'll notice over here we have a single fuse 6-gauge power harness. This is good if you're just going to run the single mono amp with no plans to run an additional amp in the future. And over here, what I'm going to demonstrate today is the 4-gauge cable. This is good if you're going to run 2 amps or if you're going to at least prep one for the future, which is what we're going to do here. There's 2 fuses in this holder here. We're going to run the 4-gauge to the main block here and run one 8-gauge wire out from here to our amp that we're installing today. But that means in the future, this is prepped. If we want to install a 4-channel amp, it's ready to go. We just need to run the small wire from this fuse to the amp that's going to sit right next to it, up top here. Same applies for this bracket over here. It's a little bit larger, flat. You can put the 2 amps side by side. You can put the fuse panel here. Same concept, right? Let's talk about what we have here. You have your RCAs. This is going to go from your amp to your pack module. You have your speaker wire, which is going to go from your amp out to your sub. We have a remote wire that's going to go from your amp to your pack module. The ground wire is going to go from your amp underneath the seat. We're going to show you how to do that. This small 8-gauge wire is going to connect the fuse block to your amp. This, of course, is going to run from your battery to your fuse block. Some tools that you need for this. get a panel removal tool. The Allen wrench, I have this one here, but your bundle, your kit will come with the Allen wrench. So a pair of wire snips, a small screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, so you can adjust the amp dials later on. You'll need a drill bit to drill through the fire stop and the firewall. It's a little piece of rubber. I prefer just to drill right through it versus take that piece out. It's a lot easier for me. A Phillips head screwdriver. You need a 10mm socket. You need a 40 Torx bit. This is to take the door off, or to at least swing the door out of the way so you can access that whole area without the door in your way. And this is a T45. This Jeep has a T45 bolt to remove the seats. I've seen other Jeeps that have a 10mm. I've seen a couple of other configurations. I would check what type of socket you're going to need to remove your seat before you get into it. Something else I want to mention, a couple of pieces of sticky Velcro. What I've done here with this amp is I've just Velcroed it down, right? So this is Velcroed down. This fuse block is just Velcroed down. It's a universal bracket, so it'll fit your amp in any configuration. However, it doesn't have the holes that are going to line up for your amp. So you can drill through the amp and zip tie it or screw it down. I just chose the Velcro, is the easiest. You'll also notice I have these little sticky tabs on here. These are great little sticky tabs to be able to route your wires around. All right, so I've gone over the type of amps, told you what amp we're going to install, the tools that you're going to need, the equipment that we have here. Today we're going to install, like I said, is Kicker's new 500-watt mono amp. And we're going to have this going into a factory amplified Jeep. So we're going to use this pack module over here, but I'll show you when we get in there that the installation is identical, the wire routing is identical, the connections are identical. It's just two different boxes at the end ultimately. So let's go ahead and get this on. Let's show you how easy this is to do. All right, we're ready to go ahead and get started with this install. First part of the installation is we're going to run the power from the battery, route it through to over here, but we need to remove this seat. We're going to go ahead and show you how to do that from another video, and we'll be right back. Move on to the power install, right? So the power wires ran to this point. Now we need to get it through, get the end through the firewall and ran over to the battery. So let's go ahead and show you that routing now. I'm going to go up to this hole right here. All right, I've already drilled through this grommet, so we're just going to go ahead and feed the wire through. You can just push it all the way through and grab it on the other side. So go ahead and just pull the remaining wire out through there. And there you go. The wire's through the engine compartment. All right, now we've got the power wire pulled into the engine compartment. We're going to go ahead and route this up along the front here and install the fuse block. I've already installed some cable management zip tie stickies here along the route. So there's one here, there's one there, and that's where I'm just going to zip tie the wire to. So just going to run this underneath here. I'm going to go ahead and zip tie this along the way. Let's cut these off. Next, we're going to move to the other side to where we can mount the fuse block and attach the power wire to the battery terminal. All right, now we're over on the battery side, so let's go ahead and finish running the wire. I'm going to zip tie it to these last two spots here. Like I said earlier, we mounted our fuse block to this fuse bracket. We can supply this bracket. We'll have this as an option. It's not going to come with the kit just because it doesn't fit with some applications. It does not fit with the 392, and it does not fit with the 4XE. This being a Gladiator, it works here, and this does mount right in this spot here. So a couple things to prep for with the fuse before installing it. We want to go ahead and swing this fuse out of line so that way we can go ahead and connect it to the battery. And once we're done with the final install, done connecting everything inside to the amp, to the the wire harness, etc. Then we'll come back around and swing the fuse back around to connect it and fasten it down. In order to do so, loosen both sides a little bit. And when you loosen this side, you'll notice it just swings. So it swings right around. Now we can leave it loose. So now I want to go ahead and get this mounted. Like I said, this mounts right here. This uses a 10 millimeter. And then it comes with another 10 millimeter that mounts right here. Now that's installed. So now we can run the power wire underneath here. And there's just enough slack to get that in to the block. Use the provided Allen key. Slide this in and tighten it down. And there you go. We can go ahead and attach this to the battery terminal. 10 millimeter. Loosen that bolt there. Let's go ahead and attach the power wire to the positive terminal now. And connect it right there. And it's 10 mil, tighten it down. All right, so now that the battery terminal, the fuse block is attached, remember after we connect everything at the amp, we're gonna wanna come back here and just swing the fuse around and tighten that down and put the cover back on. I can rest the cover on it just so nothing hits for now. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and prepare the driver side seat for the amp install. Everything that we've pre-wired, we've made cut to length for the amp to mount underneath the driver side. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna remove the seat completely for the install. It's just easier for demonstration. You don't need to remove it. You do still need to unscrew all 4 of the bolts and just tilt it back, which I'll show you. So just to walk through what we're gonna do over here is prepare the seat for the install, prepare the carpet, which is pulling the carpet back. I'm going to remove this kick panel trim piece underneath here, which the Alpine head unit is located there, and you'll also need that for the cable routing for access as well. To remove the bolts from the seat, it's a 10 mil, so let's go ahead and remove the bolts. Here's the first bolt up in the front outside part. Second bolt is over here inside the rail. The third bolt, if you slide the seat forward, that's how you're going to be able to access that. The third bolt, and the fourth bolt is against the middle part here. Right there. All right, so let's go ahead and slide the seat back all the way. Let's pull the seat front forward. I'm going to lift the back of the tail of the bench up so that way there's more room for this to sit back to. All I did was lift the bench up. Now we can tilt the seat all the way back. We have plenty of room to work underneath here, and this is where the amp is going to sit. So like I said, I'm going to go ahead and remove the seat so we have full visibility of the work area so you can see exactly what I'm doing to install this amp. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the heat warmer from the seat to remove the seat. Again, totally your choice if you want to do this or not. All right, so there's 2 connectors here. There's this big black one here and the mustard colored one. Go ahead and push this tab inside here. You'll hear it click and just pull it right out. And then for this guy, pull this red piece back and you can just slide this little tab out by pushing down. You have to push this little tab down as you pull it out and then pull that out. Swing the wire around. Now I go ahead and take the seat out. All right, everybody, we're in the Jeep now. The power cable is ran. We still have to route it and bury it and do all that jazz, which I'll show you in a second. The seat's obviously out. So first thing I want to do here is I want to take the factory head unit out of the dash. Very easy to remove this factory head unit. Let's go ahead and start with this panel underneath. This just pops right out with a couple of clips. Can you grab each side of it and just pull down? It pops right out. With your panel removal tool, you can stick it right inside this edge over here and just pull up. It's going to yank the whole trim piece out. It sounds nasty, it sounds damaging, but it's not. You may just want to flip it over and check to make sure that you did keep all of the little white clips on there. Sometimes they'll get stuck in the housing. If you have a clip that doesn't have the white clip on it, look inside the port, the housing where it came from, and I'm sure it's sitting inside there. You can pull it out and just put it on there. So let's go ahead and disconnect this so it's out of the way completely. There's two connectors on here. One is for the controls and one is for the ignition. So go ahead and remove this part here. There's a little tab on the bottom. You just push this up. That comes right out. Similar tab over on this side. You just push in right here and pull up. Now here there's two screws underneath that hold this bezel in. Just go ahead and remove the two screws, one right here and one right here. So two Phillips head screws. Now that the two screws are out, you can just pull this bezel up. And same thing on here. This will have red clips. Just want to make sure that each one of these tabs has the red clip on it. So there's 6 red clips on there. If you don't have those, just look in the slot. It's probably still wedged inside the slot there. You can pull it out and just put it on. So let's set our bezel aside. Now to get the head unit out, there are 4 screws, one in each quarter. Put the head unit down. Really, we don't need to remove the head unit completely. We just need to disconnect the main harness to that. So there's just one large harness that comes off. You push this button right here and that releases this lever. And as you pull the lever up, it'll pop the clip out from the port. And you want to leave that out because that's where your module is going to connect into the interface unit. So that's all prepped, ready to go for the module. So now we're going to remove this trim panel piece here. In order to do that, there's a bolt up front, up top here that needs to be removed. It's kind of behind the clip that the door harness clips onto. So we need to push this clip harness out of the way and then remove this 10mm bolt. Once that bolt is out, then we can pop this trim panel piece off. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so now the trim panel piece is out. We're going to go ahead and route the power wire. There's a couple of bars and harnesses, all factory bars, factory harnesses, that we want to route this power wire behind all of that. So bury it as much as possible. You're going to remove this plastic piece right here, so that way the wire is going to be buried underneath this, and the wire will end up coming out right around here. Just to make sure that it's not kinked up anywhere. We don't need any kinky wire. Now we're going to remove this panel here. Just to note, there were 2 screws here. There aren't now. This has probably been through a couple of installs of different things, but if you do have 2 screws here on yours, you're going to have to remove those screws to get this out. Something to note also, this is a JL Wrangler. The Gladiator does have a different trim piece here. It just has different clips that take it out. But the install, again, is the same. The purpose is the same. You're just trying to bury the wire underneath this trim piece, so when you put that plastic trim piece back on, this is underneath that and buried nicely. It'd be helpful to grab a screwdriver to pop this little pin here a little bit, this little plastic piece. So that pops right out. Same over here. And you just need to lift it out. You don't need to get all of this out. You just want to lift it so that way you can get the cable underneath there. I'm gonna wedge that inside there. I want to go underneath this harness here so this lays nice and flat and tucked away. What we're going to end up doing is lifting the carpet up and just push the carpet back out of the way here like that. And this is where we're going to end up hiding our cable. We're going to loop it up around here, service loop it here, zip tie it to the other wire harness here. So that'll be where all of the spare slack cables can lay. This will ultimately route around here. Come out like this. So as I mentioned earlier, we are using the 4-gauge option cable here, which has a distribution block over here, which is going to be used to be able to install another amp at another time. Just preparation for the future. Since this is a mono amp just for the sub, you may want to install a 4-channel amp later on for the speakers. So I would suggest to go ahead and prepare for that. If you don't want to do that, then the other power option is available, which is just running the single wire to the battery, the fuse mounts to the battery, and that's the demonstration we showed you earlier. So I'll show you how to connect this here. So this fuse block is mounted on the bottom. This is the distribution block. You pop the cover off, and this again is just velcroed down here. The main 4-gauge cable from the battery is going to terminate in the single main side, and you have 2 fuses, again one for each block, one for each amp. You can use the Allen key that comes with the power harness, which is different than this one here. Same size, it fits, it's meant for this. Slide that in. You go ahead and tighten this down. What I'm going to do here also, the battery terminal is not yet connected, so I'm going to remove these fuses so that way I can connect the battery, and that way once I'm done with everything else, all I need to do is put the fuse in and we're ready to go. Single mono amp. The other fuse I'm not going to put in until later time if I do decide to put a 4-channel amp in. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and route the little jumper power cable from the size block that we decide to our mono amp. So let's go ahead and go to this block here. And it doesn't matter which one you go to, because you're going to choose where you terminate. There you go. Now is the time that you can connect the power at the battery now. You can go ahead and connect to the positive terminal because it's broken. The link is broken right here. There's no power flowing through. So you can connect that, and then when you're done, you can come back and just put the fuse into there. Just put the cap on there while we're working on the rest of it, and then we'll come back. I went ahead and stuck these little sticky tabs on here that I talked about from earlier. Go ahead and zip tie that down. So you have 5 ports on the amp right here. You have your ground, you have your remote, you have your 12 volt, you have your speaker wire, your positive and your negative. So right now we're going to connect the 12 volt power. The remote wire is the blue wire that we're going to route to the glove box in a minute. And the ground, of course, is the ground, which we'll do that next after the power wire. So let's get the power wire connected first. Now let's go ahead and get the ground wire. That's going to go at the far, from your angle, left. Let's just go ahead and screw it down. So I went ahead and put a sticky tab right here, as you'll see. I'll zip tie all these cables together once we get the remote wire put in here as well. So while we're here, you might as well go ahead and grab the remote wire and get that plugged into there. On one end, there's going to be a ferrule connector. The ferrule connector is going to attach into the amp. On the other end is going to be a male bullet connector. The male bullet connector is going to connect into the interface module that's behind the glove box when we install it there. So on that harness, there's going to be a female bullet connector. So male and female are going to go together. So let's go ahead and attach the ferrule to the remote port on the amp. Let's go ahead and terminate our ferrule into the remote port in the middle of the power and the ground. Now it's in. Let's go ahead and give each one a tug just to make sure that they are securely fastened in, and they are. So all three are there. We can go ahead and put a zip tie into the sticky tab there to hold that down. So our power and the ground are connected to the amp. The remote wire is connected to the amp. Let's go ahead and connect the RCAs to the RCA harness on the amp. And let's go ahead and connect our speaker wire that's going to route from the amp back to our sub, our chosen sub, whichever one we decide to do. So let's go ahead and get the RCAs and the speaker wire connected. Speaker wire first. We'll provide this. This will come in your bundle. This wire here is yellow and black. You may get one that's blue and black, yellow and black. There's different color variations of speaker wire. So don't necessarily rely on this specific color being the one. However, there is a positive and negative dedicated, of course. So let's call our positive our yellow and our negative our black. Let's go ahead and connect our RCAs. The amp that you choose may have a little bit of a different configuration, so don't necessarily rely on this exact configuration. It will have a power, it will have a ground, it will have a remote wire, it will have your speaker wire, and it will have your RCAs. They may just be located in a different spot depending on the amp that you choose. This here is the kicker, so this is the configuration for the kicker. Alpine, of course, has a little bit different of maybe an RCA harness or something, but the fundamentals are the same. Ground, power, remote, speaker wire, RCAs. So in here it also has yellow, black. We're going to go white as positive. So white is going to be our yellow. Our red is our negative. So our black is our negative. Although the wires are connected to the amp, we just now need to connect the ground from the amp to the Jeep ground bolt that's underneath the seat here, and then route the wires which go that way. So let's go ahead and get the ground wire attached. So the ground wire goes to this bolt here. This is a 10 millimeter. Can route this in any way. So that way it's out of the way. And I choose just like that. And loop it back around. And 10 mil back down. There you go. And now we are grounded. So now let's go ahead and route our RCAs and our remote wire. We're going to go through the column here, come out the other side. You'll see that we have the passenger seat out. It's not necessary to remove the passenger seat. You can easily get right through there. But for what we have going on here, it's just easier to remove it to show you for demonstrations of exactly where the wire is going to come through. The RCAs are going to route underneath this. There's a little channel there. They're going to come out the side over here. And the RCA and the remote wire, they're going to route along the trim up there. It's going to tuck underneath the plastic trim there. And that's going to go up into back behind the glove box. So I'm going to come to that side once I do that so I can take the glove box down and I'll show you where to mount the module and how that connects to the factory head unit. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and fish the RCAs and the remote wire through the center tunnel here. There's a little spot down on the bottom, like I said. Go ahead and get yourself, a coat hanger or a fish stick if you have one. And we're going to go ahead and stick it through. Now, if I were on that side, I can absolutely, from that side, I can stick the rod in through this side to tie it on and pull it through. However, you would need to access your hand underneath the seat. And if you can see, we have a couple of other components in the way there, so I wouldn't be able to do that. Hence why taking the seat out for this was just more helpful and better for the demonstration. So we go ahead and push this through. So I get it through, or tape the RCA and the remote wire. I'm just going to tape them to the end of the push stick here. Just tape that through, and you're just going through here. You may be able to even to push the wire through there, or to push the cabling through there. It's only like 6 or 8 inches that it's going through, but just to fight with it less, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and push it through. I mean, I can stand here and reach it. Okay, and there you go. So all of this is going to end up, all this slack is going to end up in the glove box, or behind the glove box, I should say. There's plenty of places for the slack to end up, though. You can, pull it through, and you can tuck a bunch in the bottom of the tray, bottom of the tunnel here. You can leave a bunch tied up underneath the air vent on the driver's side. There's plenty of room to keep it. So let's go ahead and pull a good amount of it through, and then we will manage the rest of it. I think that's probably good enough. That's probably 4 or 5 feet of cabling there, which is definitely way more than enough. So now that we have that pulled through, we're going to go ahead and just manage the wires on this side. We're going to zip tie them, and there's a little spot underneath the center here. We can tuck them underneath the vent here, like I said. So let's go ahead and take care of that. I'm just zip tying the slack cable here to the main Jeep harness that's underneath the seat. All right, so now that's zip tied down, managed as much as we want to manage it now until we do a power test. But I'm going to come to that side. I'm going to take the glove box out, and I'm going to mount the module behind the glove box, which is going to route up to the back of the head unit, and I'm going to attach the RCAs and the remote wire. So I'll be over there in a second. All right, so we'll over on this side. I'm going to take care of a couple of things. First, I'm going to route the RCAs and the remote wire up through the panel here, underneath the trim, up into the back of the glove box. I'll of course remove the glove box, show you how to do that. I'm also going to install the modules, which connect to the back of the head unit with a T-harness, and the harness drips back behind the glove box, and the module will hang behind the glove box there. And the RCAs and the remote are going to plug into the module. But before I get into that, I wanted to show you a couple of differences between the two modules, right? Like I said, the installation is identical between them, but one is for the factory amplified Jeep and one is for the non-factory amplified Jeep. So let's explain to you the non-factory amplified Jeep real quick. Again, it's going to be the same installation, so you're going to get to the same point doing the same thing for the same Jeep, right? This is the one for the non-factory amplified. It's only going to have your 2 RCAs on it. That's where your sub RCAs are going to plug into. So this is going to mount behind the glove box. Again, we're going to show you. I just want to explain it. This is going to mount behind the glove box. In order to get it there, just disconnect these 2 connectors on here. You can set that aside. These 2 harnesses are going to route behind the head unit into a channel that goes behind there, and this wiring harness is just going to drip behind the glove box. Once that's back there, the module will reconnect. One is power, ground, remote wire, and the other one is your speaker wire connector. And the RCAs that we route up are going to plug into the RCA ports, and the male bullet connector on that remote wire is going to plug into the female bullet connector like I mentioned earlier. The T-harness part that is now will be hanging up on here, it's a T-harness, so it's going to connect to the factory head unit and to the factory OEM harness here. All right, so that module is for the non-factory amplified Jeep. And we'll show you how everything is supposed to be set up also. We'll take a picture of that and we'll show that on the page. Now for the factory amplified module, same concept, same installation. The module itself is a little bit different. Instead of having 2 connectors, you have 1. So you're going to disconnect the 1 connector, set that aside. You're going to route this the same way that you would that one, down through the channel behind the head unit. It'll drip behind the glove box, and the T-harness, same connectors as the last one. One side is going to go into the OEM connector coming out of the Jeep. The other side is going to connect to the back of the head unit. Once that's connected, then you'll attach the module back to the harness. You'll connect the male connector from the remote wire to the female bullet connector here. And then you'll attach the 2 RCAs from the sub amp to the 2 sub RCA ports here. They're all labeled. It says label. There's 4 other ones, so in case later on, again, you wanted to install a 4-channel amp, all you're doing is running your RCAs over to here, and that would be pretty much the rest of that install. So again, this is for the factory amplified Jeep, which this one is factory amplified. And factory amplified Jeep would be if you have a Gladiator, you have a sub behind the rear bench. We can show you pictures in the product page of how to identify that. And if you have the JL on the right side of the cargo area, it's a grill and it says Alpine on it. That one's easier to identify than the Gladiator is. If you don't have that sub in the rear and that sub behind the bench, you do not have the factory amplified system, which would mean you're going to go for the other option, which is the non-factory amplified module. So next up, what we're going to do is I'm going to remove the glove box so I can route the RCAs and the remote wire coming from the mono amp. We'll route them up into the back behind the glove box area. So let's go ahead and remove the glove box. So we're going to lower the glove box. You're going to push this tab in, which will drop that down. See this little arm lever over here? You're going to grab a hold of this and you're going to pull it up until it snaps out, and then just move it out of the way. And if it comes out, no big deal. You can put that back in. There's a little clip that it clips into. All right, let's go ahead and route the RCAs and the remote wire. So I'm going to first pull this carpeting back. Just slides right out like so. There's a little clip up here. It just pops off. Pull the carpet out. You can go ahead and find the spot that you're going to put the RCAs and the remote wire. Grab the end of them. By doing this, what I mean is really just reach underneath here and you're going to find a spot that you can stick your fingers in here and you can touch your fingers from the top. There's a couple of spots, so really it's just honestly a matter of just reach around in there until you find the spot that goes through, and then reach your hand in from the top and just touch your fingers, and you've got your passageway through, right? There's no right way, there's no wrong way. It's just whichever way you can find that goes through for you. There we go. That was, I guess, the right way because we're through. We're just gonna pull it all out. Now we're done with that. We can reattach the carpeting. We can tuck it up underneath the trim. Once the seat's here, you're not going to see any of that anyway, but you can tuck it right up underneath there and you're good to go. This slack wiring here will of course manage once we get the module installed. So let's go ahead and route the harness, right? So I've disconnected the module from it, so now it's just the harness itself. This is going to route behind in a little channel. And to find the channel, you can just stick your hand up into the glove box. And again, with the other hand, just find where your fingers are, right? There isn't the right way, there isn't the wrong way. It's just whichever way your fingers end up going through, that's the way. There's probably a couple of different little channels here, but really, once you reach up inside here, your fingers are just going to go to the spot. And I can touch the tips of my fingers on both sides here. So I'm going to go ahead and take this side of it. I'm going to hand it off to myself inside here. I'm going to grab it and pull it down. Kind of feed the little fuse on there through, just kind of feed it through and get it down to where now the connector itself and the female bullet connector both came through. We can go ahead and attach the head unit and the OEM Jeep harness to our T harness from our module. So to do that, this is going to connect just like the other one did. It has this arm that swings over and it clips down. And if you want to release it, you just push up on it. Well, you just lift up on it and release it. I will note that you're going to want to make sure that when you install this, that you really push down firmly. Even though this locks over, you still want to push it down firmly to make sure that all of the pins, there's a lot of pins that are connecting into this. You want to make sure that they're all really seated in there firmly. And then once you connect the OEM harness to the other side of it, you do the same thing. Just really press down in it even though it clicks. Press down in it, make sure it clicks into space. There's a little groove on this side so you know which way you're going into it. You can only go one way. So this tab is up. And as you push down into it, the tab is going to lower down. And just lower the tab down. And that's it. It'll do a little soft click. It's not like a solid click. But so that in that case, in that point, since it's not a solid click, you just kind of want to push down to really make sure it's seated into place. So now that that's connected, we're going to attach the OEM harness from the Jeep. into the other end of the T-harness. And this is the same type of connector. Well, actually, this is the factory connector, so it has that swing over arm. And same thing here, it can only go in one way. There's a little notch in the connector here, and there's a little notch that matches it over on this side. Slide it down. As you slide it down, click that over, and that'll click into place. Again, even though it clicks into place, still give it a solid push, right? Still give it a firm push in there to make sure it really is in there. So that part is done. So you're technically connected to your factory radio. You're done. We can reinstall that, screw it back together. We'll do that in a second after we do a power test to make sure we get power to the amp. So let's go ahead and connect our module. So reach in and grab the harness. We're going to connect the module to the harness. And then now let's go ahead and connect the RCAs and the remote wire to the module. Making sure that we're going into the sub, and also making sure that we're keeping positive with positive and negative with negative. Remember, yellow was positive and black was our negative, which is our red. That's connected. Now let's go ahead and connect our bullet connectors. This is our remote wire. You're going to connect the male bullet connector to the female bullet connector that it's attached to the module. So now we ran the wires to the module. That's all connected. We attached the T-harness to the factory radio. That's all connected. Everything is connected. So now we're ready to go ahead and do a power test. Prior to testing power, of course, we need to finish the fuse connection here. So let's go ahead and swing this fuse over. Just like so. The fuse is in. Let's go ahead and just tighten it down. And tighten this side down. Now we're just going to go ahead and put the kicker cover plate back on. There we go. Power's done. Should be able to go ahead and test our power now. All right, back over on the driver's side. We're getting ready to button this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to screw the head unit into its spot just with one screw, just to kind of hold it there temporarily. I'm going to attach the trim piece, the electronic piece, so it has the start button. And then I'm going to put the fuse in the distribution block here so we can do a quick power cycle just to make sure we're getting power to the amp. And then I'll button everything up and we'll completely close it up and then run our speaker wire to the sub of our choice. So let's go ahead and do the head unit first. All right, that's held into place there. Let's grab our control panel. Let's go ahead and connect the ignition. Might as well connect this piece also, just so everything is connected there. And just rest that there. If you want to put it, snap it back in, you can. I'm just going to rest it there. So we're going to put the fuse into the distribution block here that I have mounted on the bottom of this bracket. Just to note, there are a couple of different bracket configurations that we have available. One is the flat bracket that I showed you on the table. That has a little bit more landscaping on here. This raised bracket here has a little bit less landscaping, which is really good for these two small little amps, the one mono, and then I'm pretty sure we're going to end up putting the little small 4-channel kicker amp that goes here. But in this case here, you know, the distribution block I have mounted on the bottom. If you choose the flat bracket, then there's plenty of landscape to mount all that on top. On the note of having two different brackets that we offer, they are both only fit for the 4-door Jeeps or for the Gladiator. They will not fit in a 2-door Jeep. The 2-door, there's this little carpet button here that snaps the carpet in. In the 2-door Jeep, the flat bracket hits that button, so you can't lay that flat. And then in a 2-door Jeep, of course, this one being raised, it's probably going to hit the bottom of the seat there because of the scissoring contraption that's on the 2-door Jeeps. I've seen before a bracket that does mount to the bottom of the seat. That's just a universal mounting bracket, not necessarily an amp bracket, but it can be used for an amp. It's honestly, it's an eBay bracket that I've seen around. I've looked for it everywhere. It's the only place I found it. So it is out there. We just don't offer it. So for the 2-door solution, what I'd recommend is taking a piece of double-sided Velcro and just using not the hook and loop part, but using the sticky part on the bottom of the amp and then the sticky part on the carpet, and that'll hold it together. And if you ever want to take it out, you just peel that Velcro off, right? So that'll hold it into place there. It's not going to bounce around anywhere underneath the 2-door seat. It's definitely not bouncing up, but that'll maybe stop it from sliding around if you want to. So let's go ahead and flip this over and put the fuse into the one block that we're going into. Now this distribution block kit is going to come with 2 fuses. They're different colors, they're different sizes. One of them is a 40 amp and one of them is a 60 amp. So we're going to go ahead and install the 60 amp into our mono amp, and we'll save the 40 amp for another time. Fuse block is in. Again, so this is just Velcro to this plate here. If you wanted to screw it in, you can definitely drill holes and zip tie it down, or screw holes and find little fasteners for it, little screws for it. But you know, Velcro just seems to work fine. So now everything is ready to power test. The amp is connected to the fuse block, distribution block. Distribution block is connected to the amp. The grounding is connected. The RCAs are connected all the way through to the module in the glove box. The remote wire is connected from the amp to the module in the glove box. The speaker wire is ran, but it's not connected to anything over here. So this is purely just a power test to make sure we get a power light on the amp. All right, let's go ahead and hit our accessories on. The power light is over here. You see the green light on there. We have successfully powered the amp. So we're good to go from that standpoint. So the last thing to do before we button everything up is what I would recommend doing is our speaker wire to the sub is not yet ran, right? So it's hanging out over here. So I'm going to go ahead and tuck the speaker wire underneath the trim panels and lead it back there. And then we'll pick up right there with where we're going to go with the speaker wire and how that's going to connect to what. All right, so we've routed the speaker wire. You saw how I tucked it underneath the trim. All I did here was just tuck it underneath the rear bench here, and I just poked it out underneath the trim panel here. So now, as you can see, we have a couple of different sub options. You can route this sub wire, the speaker wire, to any one of these subs, whether you have the SSV Works driver side mounted sub here, an Alpine downfiring, a kicker downfiring, whether you have the Alpine system and you want to drop in an MB Court OEM replacement sub into the factory housing there, or whether you have an MB Court tailgate sub, you can route this wire anywhere to meet and to reach the sub that you are installing. So you can route the wire along the trim here, along the trim on the other side. You can go to the tailgate sub if you want, the OEM replacement, the down firings, or the driver side mounted box enclosure over here. Right. So now that we have that all routed, you're just going to go ahead and connect whichever enclosure that you're running to and make sure you get sound out of it. Once you have sound of it, you've confirmed that, then we can go ahead and button the rest of it up. All right, so everything is connected here. We need to button it up, but I did go ahead and connect the SSV Works pod that is mounted on the driver side wheel well. That has a 10-inch kicker in it. So I went ahead and installed that just so we could do a sound test here before we button that up. Just so you could see how this works with the module, right? So let's go ahead and hit it. Yeah, I mean, so again, this is the factory amplified Jeep. So this has the factory sub. When we run this module to the new sub, you now have both subs operating. So we have 2 subs back there, the factory 10-inch, and now we have the kicker 10-inch along the driver's side there. So you have, with this setup, actually a sub on each side and full cargo room space free to carry cargo. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get everything buttoned up. We're going to wrap the wiring, clean up the cables, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and do that. Tilt the seat up a little bit and just align the slots to match up with the holes And you may have to hold it there first and then lower the seat down to find the groove. Make sure you're in the right spot. And then you can just take one bolt and kind of hold it into place. When you come to the other side, do the same thing with the other side. Just match the groove up with the hole, and then just take a bolt and hold it into place. And you can tighten them down a little bit, and then I would move up to the front and then tighten those down, and then come back here at the end to give them their final torque down. There you go. So the package is velcroed up against the top there like that. And now we have plenty of space in front of it to wind up the RCAs and the remote cable. And I'm just going to grab a piece of zip tie here. Just going to zip it around. I can just tuck that back behind there. Of course, you can zip tie that, manage that however you like to. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now we're ready to put the glove box back into place. And that's done. All right, we're back in the Jeep. Everything is put back together where it belongs. Everything is tidied up here. We've gone ahead and done a quick test of power just to make sure before we got to this point. We're at this point. Let's just go ahead and do a final test just to make sure before we can claim our victory run and say that we're done. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's start. Turn the volume up a little bit. Start our music. Okay, perfect. You guys can't hear what that sounds like. The sub is definitely cranking away. We have two subs now. This is the factory Alpine, factory amplified Jeep, so it has the two. If you have the non-factory amplified Jeep, you'll get one sub, obviously. That's what we're installing. Anyway, you know, I hope you all enjoyed this. I hope it was easy enough for you that you know that you can tackle this project. We're here to help you out with it. If you ever get stuck along the way, we're here to help make sure you get over the finish line. So I hope you enjoyed the video. So if you'd like to pick up your Trail 7 plug and play amp and sub bundle, visit us at www.trail7.com. Until next time, we'll see you out there.